Welcome back to Movie Guys Improvise, the MGI podcast. You are listening to the voices of
Chill with Realms.
Jurassic Mark.
and Faerhad Targaryen. Last month's episode was our most recent anime episode, My Hero Academia, The Two Heroes. If you want to watch our review of that, you are going to have to pay a visit to the Chill with Realms YouTube channel, which I always link in the description as well. Today's episode, we are taking another step back, another classic from 1963, The Great Escape, which was another blind review for me. Most movies that I've reviewed with co-hosts, I haven't seen beforehand, so this was new for me. Realms, this was new for you as well, right? Or had you seen this?
It is my first time watching it.
All right, and I think JM, you yourself even mentioned that this was going to be a blind watch for you as well, or had you seen it beforehand? If not,
No, that's correct. I hadn't seen this one before. I'd been hearing about it for a couple of years, but yeah, I finally got around to watching it.
amazing. Okay, so since it was your choice, go ahead and give us a quick little synopsis, however much you feel, and tell us what the decision was to choose this, or if it was because it was a blind classic watch.
Sure. Well, The Great Escape is a fictionalized retelling of an actual POW prison break during World War II, in which I believe it was 76 Allied prisoners broke out of a Nazi prison camp, only for many of them to be, well, almost all of them to be recaptured, and 50 of these men were killed, but defenders of their legacy will tell you that the escape forced the Nazis to waste a huge amount of money and time and resources recapturing those guys, and all that energy could have been spent elsewhere on the battlefield, so it probably did have a military impact of no small significance. And I went with this movie because I know a lot of people who are fans of it. I hadn't seen it previously, but I'd been hearing some pretty good things, and I'd heard how influential it was. And watching it for the first time, I could definitely see how other movies sort of tip their hats to this movie. Like I think I mentioned last time, the stop motion movie Chicken Run is kind of like a soft remake of The Great Escape, except it's about a bunch of birds getting out of a chicken coop. And that theme music is pretty iconic. You know, I think I heard that in an episode of The Simpsons. So this is probably one of the most satirized movies of all time. This is a movie that gets parodied a lot in other movies and in TV shows.
Yeah, it was a lengthy movie too. I think it was almost as long as Avengers Endgame at 172 minutes, or just around 3 hours, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm sorry.
No. I'm not complaining. I'm saying, more movies that are longer, there's gonna be that comes to that. Some of the best movies I've ever seen are actually super long. A lot of Bollywood movies, if you've ever been to Bollywood, they're also super long because they're also all musicals as part of it.
I watched my first Bollywood movie recently, and yes, it was a musical, even though it was also about like this guy who gets framed for murdering his neighbor's wife, but they turned that into a musical. So
Do you remember what it was called?
I can't remember the title. You know, I'll message you later and we'll put it in like the comments section.
All right. So when I think of The Great Escape, I usually don't think of a movie first. For some reason, it sounds like some roller coaster ride at Six Flags or something. And maybe there is a roller coaster ride with a similar name, right? The Great Escape. So this movie was quite long. It started out a little bit slow, but it really picks up and it really engages with you, right? Once it starts to pick up, and every individual character is unique. They have their own personality. They have their own problems too, right? And the movie does a good job of getting you invested in these characters and how they're all like working together. Like they all like each other. They're all cooperating to get the hell out of this prison, right? But I didn't know until after I finished watching it that it is kind of based on a true story. You're saying like it's a fictionalized version of the events. Yeah, like all the characters' names, all that is fake. They made all that up. But a version of this did happen in real life.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know that until after I saw it. So when I saw the ending and I'm like, what the hell? practically everybody is getting caught and going back or getting killed. What the hell? This is not a feel good ending of the movie. There were like one or two that ended up escaping for good. The movie makes it look like one of the dudes was Australian. In real life he was Norwegian or something like that. So I was enjoying the movie, like the heist, the actual heist part of it, building up to it, up until the actual ending. And I get that it's kind of, you know, true. They're trying to stay true to events, but it's like I didn't know that before that. So you know, when I finished it, I'm like, I don't know how much I like this movie, but I was in for the ride. Those were my initial impressions. I'm just saying. Realms, what do you think?
Yeah, for me, I started watching it after work. So it started out slow for me and I started like dozing off. I think maybe a half hour into the movie. So I took a 10-minute nap. I got maybe 10 more minutes. I started dozing again. But then right after that point, I started picking up and I started enjoying the entire thing from there. Except for, of course, you know, the end where a lot of casualties happened. But aside from that, it was very interesting.
Yeah, even people who love this movie will generally tell you, at least in my experience, that it's about 20 to 30 minutes too long, at least. According to some, I don't know where I would personally make the cuts if I had to re-edit this movie. But yeah, it does feel a little bit bloated. And I'll agree that the first hour is the slowest, but it also sets things up really well. You know, it sets up the geography of the situation, you know, where the buildings are in relation to each other and in relation to the walls, so that when people start breaking out, you're able to follow along.
So yeah, that's the thing about it. I mean, like as far as what happened that was real and what wasn't, the casualties like you were mentioning, Realms, that all happened, right, JM? Like in real life, there were 50 people who got killed out on the spot, or was that made up?
Yeah, it happened. It didn't happen in quite the same way. Like they didn't just drive 50 of these guys into a field and shoot them down. Apparently, some German soldiers would like pick them off like two by two or one by one, you know, individually. But yeah, in the end, they did end up killing 50 of the escapees.
Okay, so not
Um,
exactly the way that they showed it, but you know, those
yeah,
people did.
yeah. Reportedly, I think Hitler wanted to kill all of them, but like some of his right hand him down to 50, because even killing those 50 was violating the Geneva Convention. So that was not only murderous, but also a strategically questionable move. But I suppose he
Right,
wanted to send a message.
right.
Yeah.
Fucking Hitler, man. My God. Well,
Yeah, that's gonna be on a T-shirt after this podcast. Just says "fucking Hitler, man," like quote like
Anybody else?
FT. Yeah.
Did anybody else see that coming though? Like when he told me, yeah, it's gonna be a long ride. We're just gonna let you stretch your legs. Anybody else see what was about to happen before it happened?
no. Well, I mean, I feel like
kind of get a sense that something wasn't quite right, and I didn't know what was going to happen in advance, but I was thinking this feels a little fishy.
Yeah, I had the hunch. I was like, he's gonna shoot them. And I just got done watching this Netflix show, Good Girls, where they had a similar scene where they're like, yeah, no, we're gonna drop her off home. She hops in the van, and then it's like you get that vibe, like
Yeah, or it's like
this
the
is the
red
end.
wedding. Oh yeah, yeah. Or it's like the red wedding in Game of Thrones when like they close the doors and you start hearing the music take on a different tone, and you know something's gonna go down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I guess for movie buffs, people who are very into like cinema and stuff, they could probably see stuff like that coming. So I guess I thought like this. It seems too innocuous what they're saying, you know, because why would they care if everybody's just cramped up in the back of the truck, right? Why would they give a shit? But no, I tried to hold a little bit of a positive vibe because if they really wanted to kill him, they didn't have to drive for 2 hours to kill him. They could have just killed them like 5 minutes after picking them up, unless they wanted to go to some place secluded. But apparently, I just thought too deep into it because they all died. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it was not until toward the end of the movie that they started killing people. Because I was like, then they're just catching people and bringing them back. Why wouldn't you try to escape?
So that's the thing. Okay, so Jam, you were saying another thing, I guess, as far as accuracy goes about this movie is the camp. The camp was pretty accurate to real life, right? Or no?
From what I've read, and I didn't have as much time to research this as I would have liked, but from what I've read, most of what happened before the escape was reasonably accurate. There were a couple of details that weren't, like the movie overemphasizes the role of American officers when it was really almost entirely British and Canadian officers
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
some French and whatnot. But yeah, the layout of the camp I think was pretty accurate. They really did have three tunnels named Tom, Dick, and Harry, and Tom was the one that was discovered, and another one just kind of got turned into like an underground supply shed. Where the movie really starts to part ways from the truth is what happens after the escape. Like there was no plane chase in real life.
That never happened?
That didn't happen. There wasn't this extended motorcycle chase in real life. So Hollywood had to get in and like glam it up a little bit.
That was my favorite part of the movie. The
That
whole
was a great scene. No, like if you watch any documentary about action scenes and special effects, like that always ranks near the tops of people's lists. The Steve McQueen motorcycle chase from The Great Escape.
yeah, I mean, that wasn't just one scene. That went on for a while in the movie.
Yeah, and he did almost all of his own stunts. I think there was maybe one or two shots where like they put in a double, but that was mostly just Steve McQueen being Steve McQueen.
That's probably why it was 30 minutes longer than it should have been. Because
We got a long highlight reel here. We got to get in all the motorcycle footage.
they started rubbing their hands like, now we can have some real fun with it.
There we go. There we go. We have a trailer.
That and the airplane scene were probably the two most expensive parts of the budget. Maybe
If I had to
not.
guess, yeah, probably, or at least up there.
Speaking of Steve McQueen,
Hmm.
who I would say his character, the Cooler King, as he's called on Wikipedia,
Oh, yeah,
Captain
yeah.
Virgil Hills. Yeah, he was definitely my favorite character. By the way, that's number one. And number two, Realms. You were saying something a few minutes ago about how like you were surprised that by the end of the movie is when they started killing people because people keep trying to escape and come back.
Yeah.
Virgil Hilts, Steve McQueen's character, he tried to escape twice already by the time, the great escape takes place, right? And they just keep grabbing him and throwing him back into the cooler. Like, dude, this dude is escaping over and over again. You're not gonna like increase your security, keep better watch on these guys as they're continuing to, you don't think he's gonna make other people try to escape?
Yeah.
I didn't really get that, but that could have been like, even though you're saying that most of what's fictionalized of what happened is what happens after the Great Escape, maybe that part was also a little bit fictionalized because he's one of like two other American characters, right? So maybe that part was also a little bit, they toyed with history and reality or something.
Yeah, don't quote me here. I don't know exactly who was a composite and who was a real character, but he might have been one of the fictional characters or fictionalized characters.
Right, yeah. A few of these characters are definitely are amalgamations of like real life figures. So yeah, as far as the movie goes, Hilts was my favorite character. Did you guys have any favorites?
I gotta say, I agree with you on Hilts.
I liked Hilts. I also liked Charles Bronson as the Tunnel King.
Yeah, Danny, right?
The guy, the guy who is a master tunnel digger who it turns out is claustrophobic, which is like quite a character right there. And I thought one of the most intense scenes of the movie was the shot where he's in the tunnel by himself and the lights go out. Like that was suspenseful, man. That was scary.
Yeah, that was
I'm in the house hollering. I'm like, oh Lord! I'm like, he's scared of the damn hole. And he's stuck in the
Oh, we were watching it with Sydney. Well, I was watching it with Sydney, my mother-in-law, and Sydney just says, "Fuck," when that happened. Just like he's screwed. But
that, and I was also nervous. I was like, as soon as the lights go, I'm like, damn, this is right before Homeboy gets out of the tunnel. The guy who was going blind. I'm like, what are they gonna do with him?
Oh yeah, I think Colin or whatever his name was. Yeah.
I was getting nervous.
Yeah. I also liked so Big X was actually Richard Attenborough. who
Oh
you
yeah.
might know as John Hammond from Jurassic Park.
Oh yeah.
This was
See,
a young Richard Attenborough.
I didn't even so he seemed like there was hints of familiarity when I was watching this dude on YouTube in this
Mhm.
movie, but then it wasn't until after like the very end credits, like they go through like basically a montage of every main character and their actor, and I'm like, what? That's him? My mind was kind of blown when I saw that, but yeah, that was X.
That was Richard
Martin,
Attenborough.
yeah, amazing.
Yeah, and he gives
So
a great performance too. Very stiff upper lip, very British. The whole keep calm and carry on ethos. He sort of embodies.
yeah, yeah. I guess they credited him as just Richard Attenborough. So I guess this was
Hmm.
before he was Sir Richard
Yeah,
Attenborough.
before he was
I
knighted,
guess
probably.
possibly, yeah. So, but that's what I mean is that like each of these characters they're not one dimensional at all. They get very developed. Like I didn't see like I don't really see that coming either. Like Danny, the master tunneler, also
Mhm.
having this problem of claustrophobia. It's like you can't have your cake and eat it too with this guy.
Yeah.
And I was definitely concerned. I already felt bad that most of them couldn't even escape, and I get like that's probably consistent with reality, right? The the air alarm goes up. I forget what Steve McQueen says, but when he's on
Yeah.
guard on the other side by
Yeah.
the trees, he comes back over to X and says, "Hey, there's like a sound alarm or something. So
Hmm.
the lights are off, but they're not looking at the woods. They're just looking at the compound. So yeah, we should be fine." But then this one dude, the one guy who was keeping like the list, like he didn't follow the instructions about how like once you feel a tug on the rope, that's when you go up. He just fucking went up. He kind of ruined it for everybody as far as
Yeah,
the
yeah, in
movie
the
goes,
movie.
So
Yeah.
He's only partial to blame though, because the two guys that were they were making sure everybody got through. They're
yeah,
like, oh no, we're just gonna pass the message along. We're gonna go ahead.
that's true. That's
Like
true.
Mm.
Yeah,
that's plain telephone.
Communication
I was like,
breakdown. Yeah.
the minute they did that, I knew it was gonna mess everything up.
the whole thing got yeah. I get. So I mean that just makes me mad. Just as a film that I'm watching,
Mm.
that's like just characters doing stupid things in movies. I get that, but they kind of had to make something go wrong, right? Because something probably went wrong in real life. So I get that. I understand that they had to like write in the story how things got fucked up. So
Yeah.
I'll give him that.
I think
Um,
in real life, the main issue was just that the tunnel opened up like well ahead of the forest. Like it was supposed to empty into the woods, but it opened up a couple meters away. The other problem was the escape happened in the winter time in real life, which probably didn't help because now
ooh,
you've got tracks, you've got snow. But
it's a
yeah, I
big
don't know if there was that specific issue with the guy not getting the message in the tunnel.
Yeah, yeah, that might have
Yeah.
been like a Hollywood thing, but changing it
Yeah.
from like summer or fall or spring, anything but winter, that's a pretty big difference, because
Yeah, yeah.
like you said, with snow on the ground and it being cold, it's hard. It's kind
Hmm.
of harder to get your body moving. Except you have the adrenaline rush and everything. But yeah, so that's a pretty big liberty that they took.
Yeah. There was one part that was like extremely frustrating to me, but it was funny at the same time. Back to the same part where they're climbing out of the hole. The one guy who fell on his luggage and made a noise, and then the guy's looking for him with a flashlight. Dude, he's standing right next to him. I'm watching the movie with my headphones. Like it was to the point I had to show my girl. I was like, "Yo, do you see this? Like he's looking for this guy, and this guy's right next to him."
This was like outside of the compound. Like
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, and he didn't get caught though either, or I think
he,
he did actually. But he didn't.
he didn't. They didn't notice until that other guy climbed up too quick.
Ah,
He didn't get that tug.
fucking lucky.
I don't know how they didn't see him.
Yeah.
Mm. Too many schnapps, I guess. I don't know for the Germans, but
Maybe they just lightened the scene up for us, but nah. I was like, it's not that damn dark. But maybe in reality, it was like it is that dark. They're just making it lighter so we can see what's going on.
mm. Well, and then there was the officer who specifically told somebody don't get tripped up on speaking a foreign language, and then he's the guy who makes that same mistake later in the movie. Ah, irony.
So when I was doing a bit of reading and research for this movie, after I had watched it, I was reading about that particular part, and it doesn't seem clear to me where, they say that was based in reality or not. Because honestly, I feel like something like that could happen in reality. Because I'm a native English speaker. We're all native English speakers here, right?
Mm.
And if I'm trying to hide my identity in a foreign country, and someone who's looking for Americans just tries to trick me by saying something in English, I feel like I could potentially slip up, So I could believe that happening, as simple as that in real life, But I don't know if it did. They kind of debate that. It wasn't totally clear to me in my research whether that was fiction, like Hollywood, or that was based in reality.
Mm. I mean, yeah, that kind of mistake could happen to anybody. I just whether or not it did, as you said, is probably open to some debate.
There was a similar scene to that. I don't know if you guys are a fan of Quentin Tarantino, but there was a scene similar to that in Inglourious Basterds, in the bar scene. And that scene in that movie really pissed me off too. So I'm not going to say any spoilers there, but if you guys have seen that movie, then you should know what I'm talking about. With Michael Fassbender's character? Yeah.
I was just going to say, I could see Tarantino liking this movie. Because he likes a lot of street smart characters and wise guys who all know what their jobs are and just do their assignments. So I can see Tarantino liking this movie.
Well, that was also a World War II movie, actually, with like Nazis as the bad guys and everything. Yeah.
I was going to talk a little bit about the tone, which was something that maybe bugged me a little. The movie's instrumental theme is pretty famous, the do 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 do, that theme. You hear that everywhere.
Yeah.
But I almost wonder if it's a little too lighthearted for this movie, where you're rooting for a bunch of people who mostly end up dead by the end of it. And I feel like the whole film has this kind of strange tone where it's trying to be fun and upbeat and also somber and dark, like at the same time. And I don't know if it quite threads the needle.
Yeah, I was thinking about that as I heard the theme throughout the movie. I'm like, this sounds like happy music. This is not a happy time for most, if not all, of these characters. Why does the music sound so happy? Unless it was supposed to represent how they're all excited about, acting out the great escape and getting out. Unless it's supposed to represent that, the hype of doing it. Yeah, I agree with you. Otherwise, I don't really understand how you're taking something so serious, like a serious subject matter, and making it feel lighthearted. I didn't really get that.
My only guess is they were trying to use that tone just to kind of lull us into thinking it was like a fun situation, because they're trying to escape. They're doing a lot of weird tactics to get out, like hiding in with the trees, and he's poking the pitchfork in there, and then they're like, and people are hopping out and stuff. So maybe that was just their way of just like kind of lulling us into thinking like, oh, it's kind of a fun movie, and then they hit us with that hard stuff towards the end, okay, to try to like get us more invested or something.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that'd be like one hell of a trick, but yeah, that may very well have been the intention. Yeah,
well, it's messed up, but
yeah, make us fall asleep. But no, yeah, because that ending hit me right in the gut, man. Yeah. So yeah, maybe you're right.
I definitely did not expect casualties, especially to that number.
Well, because it's a Hollywood movie, we are expecting like these guys to all get out in the end and fly off into the sunset, because that's just how these types of movies usually roll, and we get very much the opposite in the end here.
Yeah. I was starting to think that the peak was when they were all drinking the moonshine, and then the one guy, he ended up getting killed. I thought that was going to be like the peak of the despair, and then I thought everybody else for the plan was going to get out.
Yeah, that's a great scene too, because that's what sort of changes the Cooler King's mindset a little bit. He just comes back and says, "Give me exactly or tell me exactly what information you need."
What was that character's name? Who tried?
Virgil Hiltz, Steve McQueen's character.
No, not Steve McQueen. The dude who was trying to climb.
I was talking about Steve McQueen's character, but yeah, the other guy. Let's see. What's that character's name?
Ives.
Oh, Ives. Okay, yeah, the Scotsman, I think.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
could.
Yeah.
I felt for the dude after. So here's the thing about how that whole segment plays out. The Nazis are inside of the cabin, right? And one of them, I think his name is Werner, the dude that the other American was kind of toying with, right? Um, he discovers like one of the holes, and he's calling his other Nazi friends. But then as everybody starts to gravitate towards that cabin, Ives just runs toward the fence, and it seems like the Werner and the Nazis in the cabins, did they just completely forget about the hole they just discovered? Because after that is when that night, I think, is when the Great Escape takes place, right? Did they just ignore what they saw inside of the
Takes
cabin?
place after that. Because yeah, they discovered the tunnel like well before the escape, I think.
But it was during the whole, like, everybody coming together to drink and party because of Independence Day in this.
Yeah, yeah, they find the first tunnel because of Independence Day, but
Yeah.
then they still had a lot of work to do on the other two tunnels, so I guess
Oh,
they kept those two hidden.
okay, okay,
Yeah,
got it.
because maybe the Nazis figured they'd found the only tunnel.
Right, right. I think that
Yeah.
could be it. I forgot that there were two other, that X or Bartlett ordered like three holes to be made, three
I
tunnels.
can't. I can't remember. Did they even do anything to punish them about that tunnel? Did they? I don't feel like they showed anything. I can't remember.
I can't remember either.
Nah, they didn't. That's why I'm saying, like, did they just forget? But no, I don't think anything happened after that. I think all the attention went to this one guy trying to climb out. All the attention got diverted there because they killed him for even trying.
If I had to think of what could have happened, I'd say, hey, if he sacrificed himself, I just pin it on him because he's gone. They can't do anything to him. I just, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Yeah, I get. I see. Maybe that's what they did. Like, they thought he was just running away because they caught him. They caught his attempt at escaping. You know.
Yeah, maybe.
But the only other thing, like, leading up to my point there was, isn't that barbed wire? How was he able to put his hands on it if it was barbed wire?
He might have been able to like put his hands between the barbs or something, or maybe he just didn't care and like grabbed onto it.
Desperation.
Yeah.
No, it hurt.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I wouldn't get it. As far as closing statements go for this, I thought it started a little bit slow. I didn't really mind that it was 3 hours long because some of the best movies I've ever seen are 3 hours long. So that didn't really bother me. Some of the things that happened to the characters when I had first ended the movie bothered me because I didn't know it was loosely based on a true story. But as a movie, I liked it, and I think I would watch it again. As violent as it is, I don't know what ratings were like back in the 60s, but I think this could fly with like a PG-13 rating because it's not super violent, it's not like gory like some war movies can be. So I think with an audience, like with someone else who would want to watch it, I'd be down to see this again, and I would recommend this. So if you gentlemen have any other closing statements.
Well, actually, apparently this movie is popular in the UK on Christmas Day. Like people will watch this on Christmas Day, which speaks to the fact that it's the rare war movie that's not all blood and guts, and that is almost kind of a family film in a way. Like I wouldn't mind watching this with my parents or small children. Yeah, I think the only other comment I wanted to make before we go into ratings is I think the last shot where we see the Nazi who's just thrown the Cooler King back into the cooler turn around at the sound of that baseball hitting the wall with just this look of disgust on his face kind of sells the movie. This guy just had a big escape attempt go wrong. He's back in the cooler and he's already thinking about his next plan. So, and I think that's kind of the spirit of this movie. You face setback after setback after setback, but you keep chugging along. I think that's
Well
the
said.
sentiment they're trying to convey.
For me, I would say it did start out rough. I was a little nervous when I started hearing the accents. I was like, oh no, is it going to be like this the whole movie? But it got a lot easier to follow along further along in the movie. It definitely got me engaged. It had its funny moments, and it had moments that shocked me. Like I said about the ending, that I wasn't expecting that many people to go out. But
I was going to give it a 7. I do think the tone is inconsistent and there are some parts of the movie that kind of drag, but that said, it's got some great performances. It's a very well crafted movie, and I can absolutely see why it's remembered as a classic.
I would say I would give this an 8 because I'd watch this again. I'd probably fast forward to past the first half hour, but but the rest of the movie, I give it an 8.
Solid, yeah. I think before I started recording, I was just thinking, what does this deserve based on how good objectively I can be about how this movie is and how much I liked it. And I was dancing around 6.5, but I think I'm gonna give it a 7 as well. Because I think I liked it just as much as The Night of the Living Dead, which is another classic that you recommended. And this movie may not be perfect. It's got some of its issues, but it's got a lot going for it as well. And with certain setbacks, I guess this could have been a little bit better, but as it is, because this movie is older than all of us, right? Still a really good movie, and it's a good story being told in a Hollywood fashion based on a true story.
Yeah, just don't call it a documentary and you'll have a good time.
No, that would just be wrong. Yeah. Okay, so I have a couple of movies in mind, but the next one up next in line that I had was a movie, one of my favorites as a kid. The first movie I ever remember getting excited to go and see in theaters. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be Disney's Mulan. Not the new one, the original cartoon Mulan.
All right.
Nice. All right. The Eddie Murphy dragon.
Yes. Mushu.
Yes.
So that's what it will be for next month for the July episode. But
all right.
As far as the Great Escape episode goes, thank you, Jam, for your recommendation. This was on YouTube, by the way. So along with everything else, we will put the link of the video to watch The Great Escape in the description as well. So thank you all for tuning in. That concludes this episode of Movie Guys Improvise. You have been listening to the voices of
Chill It Rounds,
Jurassic Mark,
and Faerhad Targaryen. Catch us again in July for our next review of the Disney classic animated film.
Let's make some honey buns. Oh, let's kick some honey bones. Okay, that makes more sense.
I understood that reference, even the first.
Yep, there we go.
We out.
Peace.